Hello. So this is our project number 3, and we're going to talk about pop art today. I am wondering how you guys are doing. Maybe we should do a Google Hangout so I can see your face soon. We are doing this till the end of the year, which is really unfortunate, but it's the safe decision and the best decision. So I'm going to walk us through kind of our next project. As you can see, I'm upping my technology game. I'm learning new things just like you guys are learning new things. So anyway, pop art, one of my favorite kinds of art, except I can't get it to work. Oh, I got it to work. It's a click and not an arrow. So this is an art movement and style that has its origins in England in the 1950s and made its way to the United States during the 1960s. Pop artists have focused attention upon familiar images of the popular culture, such as billboards, comic strips, magazines, advertisement, and supermarket products. There is a handful of leading artists that have been part of the pop art movement. We are going to look at a few, not all of them, of course, but Richard Hamilton, Andy Warhol, Roy Lichtenstein, Claes Oldenburg, and then Jasper Johns. So this piece of artwork I think is pretty cool. It is 100 sources of pop art. So the artist, Sir Peter Blank, put these together and kind of took them all and decided to make this silk screen print, which I thought it was just kind of a fun snippet of pop art. Very colorful, very bright. And then it's always like iconic images, which is appealing to me because it's what we see all the time. Andy Warhol, one of my favorites. You've probably seen some of his work along the way. And so for him, he is pretty much the known pop artist that people would think of when they think of pop art. And he started as a commercial artist. And then he said, you know what, I really want to move into more comic strips, more newspaper, more movies. So he really wanted to embrace the American spirit. And then with that, he loved to repeat the same image over and over. And the reason he did that is so they could be interchangeable, and then there would never be a worse painting or a better painting. Like they would just be kind of equal plane. He dabbled in all sorts of different kinds of filmmaking, performance art, and then of course you have seen the soup cans. This one is silk screen and ink, so a lot of silk printing and ink printing and printmaking. And then the turquoise Maryland, 1962. So again, taking the same image and repeating it. And there's one the Maryland like this that you've maybe seen, maybe not. Roy Lichtenstein, he is a developed pop artist style that was based in visual mass communications. So he was really all these comic strips, and he liked to kind of have this really style that was his, that was really bright, really distinct black lines. And then as you can see in the one on the left, they have these little dots. That was his, it's a rendering called D-Day dots, and it was a form of creating art. And so you don't totally know what's happening with some of his comic strips. They might be just one image, like this says, maybe he became ill and couldn't leave the studio. We don't totally know what's going on there, right? So a little bit random, but Roy Lichtenstein is another pop artist. Claes Oldenburg will always be one of my favorites. So he gravitates more towards sculpture. With him, he loves to do consumer merchandise. So lipstick, clothespins, these are two of his. He has a million all over the world. So if you look him up, you will see this is the iconic Spoon Bridge and Cherry, which is in our own Minneapolis, Minnesota at the Walker Sculpture Garden outside. So maybe you could see that if you guys want a little social distancing field trip. But he really likes to play with the sizing and then also play with the material. So of course this is gigantic, right? Like no one would have a spoon this big with the cherry on it. He also likes to play with the material. So for example, if something was like really soft, like a cupcake, he would do it in metal that is really hard. So he likes to kind of have that tension between the material and then the actual image. but the Spoon Virgin Cherry is a classic Minnesota item. Jasper Johns. This is a caustic and oil and collage, so working with kind of multiple materials. He really questioned how we look at art and does it distinguish between subject and object. And he likes to do things with found objects that he would just see, such as flags, targets, arrows. So his pulling is kind of, this is a false start, and you can see it's very, very layered. And then this summer is also very layered of mixed materials. I like Jasper Johns a lot. He also likes to kind of put in numbers and letters, and it feels sign kind of a lot, often like a sign, but he likes to play with those layers of meaning and communicate different things within one image, which is kind of fun, right? If you read more about it or research about it, then you can understand more about it. Those are a few, just a little bit of pop artists. So for our project is we're actually going to create a pop art can logo or design. I'm really open to what this logo or design looks like. I'm going to kind of walk you through what are some of the choices. So our very first thing is, and you can do this in your head if you really want, but you can see that was my random list of things. So for this, one way, and I would do this if we were in class, I'd say, hey, what are things you love? Do you love cats? Do you love dogs? Do you love pizza, right? And I went through in my list, I love birds, I love 80s things. That was my list of stuff I love that I pulled, just of things that I thought, oh, these are things that I kind of just naturally love. So if you make a little list of your think list, and you can do this in your head, but it kind of gives you a starting point of what am I gonna do? Sometimes that's the hardest thing, like, what am I gonna create? Like, sure, I can do the work, but I don't know the creative part of what I wanna make. So here's a list of ideas, patterns, what are some things, what are some foods you like, animals you like, flavors, brands even, songs, anything that you could put on your pop can. I decided I am really struggling to not be able to work three-dimensional, right? Like that was our whole class. And so I'm trying my best, but we're so limited in that we don't have, everybody is not equally equipped with supplies at their house. And so with that, you can choose to make something, this project, either 2D, so just on a piece of paper, or try to make it 3D the best we can. And so I'll show you what those options could look like. If you guys have any awesome 3D ideas that everybody you think could do at home, email me. Like, if that sounds like a fun project, I'm totally open. The biggest thing is to teach our class ceramics and sculpture through the computer, right? It turns really difficult. So as you can see on the left are 2D, so on a piece of paper, and then on the right are 3-dimensional, right? They have length, width, and depth and height. So your very first step is to create a simple drawing of a can. So if you are gonna do the 2D version, I just have a simple drawing of a can that I had begun, right? I'll draw it a little bit darker so you can see. I realize you can't really see in the screen that great. And then from here, and this is the 2D version, from here, you would just kind of start to begin filling this in. If you're gonna go with the 3D, you're gonna start with this size piece of paper and then design that. And I'll kind of review that after we get that. Whenever you're done with whatever form you're gonna do, 2D or 3D, then you're going to create it, redesign the look by creating a new logo or a type of soda. You're gonna fill up the entire space and be bold. Color it, leaving no white areas. If you don't have coloring supplies, which I know is difficult for some and for some it's not, just email me and make a shout out. You could always do different shades with a pencil. So darker versions of gray, lighter versions of gray, white, and then really hard with the gray, just to get a contrast and some variety with this. So here's some examples of 2D. My 2D was, I did Dot Betty, 2 middle names that I love, one both from my grandma's. And so I just put those together, and then I did this 80s pattern. I just was feeling like drawing 80s pattern, and so that's what I went with. And I drew it, I colored it, I outlined it, And then that was my kind of 2D version of this, right? So again, you're gonna start, if you wanna do the 2D, you start with a can shape, a very simple shape, like this. Draw that simple shape. There's a lot of videos of how to draw a can. You can also just look at a can and actually draw the can with your eyes, which is an easy, but if you're struggling, you can Google, there's a ton of websites, a few YouTube videos of just how to draw a simple can. From there, design it with a pencil and then color it with whatever you have. Erase your pencil lines, take a good photo, and turn it into me. That is the 2D, okay? So that's the one that is just length and width, piece of paper. For the 3D version, these were 2 I did, and then I will show you kind of how that would go. So you would start with a piece of paper that is 4.5 by 9. Of course, don't write 4.5 by 9, but I just wanted to show you roughly the size. You can also just, if you don't have a ruler, just like go around a can and be like, okay, roughly what size piece of paper do I need to wrap around a can? And it could be any kind of can or a bottle. Doesn't matter to me if that's what you have at your house. If you don't have that, then go to the 2D one, right? Like go to this version. Once you have this, you're gonna design it and color it with a pencil and figure it out. This one was also kind of random. I just started doodling and this is what I came up with. So it was kind of a mix of just happy-go-lucky and 80s, and here I am. So this one is Dot Betty as well. When I'm done with this, I'm going to just take this and I'm gonna wrap it around my can with either glue or tape. I just use tape. So I just took like clear tape, wrap it around my can, and then that was kind of how I made my 3D version. Take a good picture of it. So I put it on some brown paper, and when I took my photos to take a good picture of it, and then I just cropped my image. You don't have to do that, but if you want to take it up a notch, you can do that. So the other thing I thought about is, hey, if you don't really feel like using drawing materials, I know that this is such a weird time at home, and you might be bored, or you might be dreading school, or you might have a lot of art materials and you totally dig this and you want to kind of run with it. So I thought you could use mixed materials, so multiple papers if you really wanted to use paint. If you really had oil pastels, that sounded fun. Of course, crayons are always, and colored pencils and markers. The other thing, I had one student turn in the optical illusion with Legos, and I thought, oh, well, if you want to build a can with Legos or cardboard and really embrace that 3D-dimensional, I'm all for it. So that would be more of a construction piece versus designing an actual logo, but I'm open. So if that is, you're one of the 300 that wants to do that, that could be. I have a lot of collage stuff, and so I just did one with a bunch of, I took a book and I cut up out this book. I thought I left it out here, but maybe I didn't. So I have this book and I just cut apart this book. I have these weird little pictures in there. And then I just played around. I have like maybe 5 different pieces of paper on here, 6, glued them. And then I called this Ever. And so, yeah, kind of had it be tropical, but related to birds, things I love. So with this, I want you to be bold, have it be bright, and have fun. This will actually be due a week, Monday, May 4th. Yeah, Monday, May 4th. So if you have any questions, of course, email me. And I miss you guys a lot. And I'm continuing trying to brainstorm how to make this the best I can. But I know that it's never like it is in person. So that is our project 3.